All right, friends, it is good to see you. I am Pastor Micah Greiner. I have with me Brian Booth here, our Executive Director, and it is 2021. We have all been looking forward to this new year and what God might be doing in and through us. And we also want to take an opportunity to look back on last year, 2020, which was a crazy year, lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of new, lots of different. And we wanted to give you a quick summary about how we came through that as a ministry, where we stand, and what we see looking forward. So I know that one question that a lot of people have in their minds is kind of just the financial picture of where we stand, including giving, and we had a year-end giving challenge, Propel. So can you give us a quick summary of where we stand and where we ended up with that?
Yeah, first of all, just thank you for everyone who participated in the year-end Propel giving opportunity. It was awesome. You guys came through in a very generous way, and we even surpassed our goal. So our goal was $200,000.
Yeah.
We had a match of $100,000. It was a combination of our foundation and a generous donor who stepped up. And so we got $176,000 in contributions from our church. And then with a $100,000 match, that turned into $276,000 for year-end giving.
Yeah.
So that was awesome
amazing. Thank you.
to see.
Now, we had a big number in our budget for this year. With that, when we set it with the board, we knew it was probably a stretch, but we figured we'd try. So kind of walk us through that and how this fits into the overall giving picture.
So what we did this year is budgeted $2 million in offerings, and then another $200,000 for a special year-end campaign, which we just talked about. So we did awesome on the year-end. On the regular offerings, the $2 million budget number, we're still tracking behind in that. So in a way, they balance each other out. And we're projecting we're going to end the year somewhere in the $1.9 million to $2 million range. And so all things considered, in a COVID year, we're again thankful and happy for how God and you have provided in the season. But there are some challenges still ahead in this time.
Yeah, certainly not out of the woods yet. And it has been crazy just to figure out who's connected with us, who's engaging in our online live streaming services, who chooses to come in person. And so just want to say thanks to all of you for your faithfulness and your patience and your understanding with us. Now, another big picture of our ministry here, including in terms of a financial impact, would be our school. Mm-hmm. And COVID definitely had an impact on enrollment as well as tuition. So you want to give us a quick summary of that?
Sure, yeah. One of the major things we saw this year is preschool and our early childhood. I think a lot of families during COVID are just waiting it out. And they're waiting to see when's a vaccine coming, when are things going back to normal. And so we saw quite a big drop in our preschool tuition.
And enrollment was down in that area by like a half.
Right. Yeah.
That's a big number.
Yeah. On the other side of that, our K-8 enrollment is really strong, actually higher than what we budgeted. We've gotten a lot of new families and students kind of coming over from the public school, and we're so happy to have them with us and in our building and in our ministry, and just how they have become a part of this family already. So thankful for that. And then also the financial help that brings as well. Yeah. So overall, we're getting close to the number we budgeted for our tuition this year, kind of being balanced out, K-8 being strong, preschool lacking a little bit behind.
Yeah, and a lot of these new families, like I think we had 24 new families enroll kids in our school in just January with a new program we started, as well as new kids in some of our classrooms. And we know they're not necessarily here to stay. They're here for now because they're waiting to see what happens in our local public schools, which is fine. I just have loved, I spend a lot more time now with 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders because we're also down in staff in some of our other areas, church side, which is great. And their energy and their joy and their excitement to be here. Like when they pray, one of the first things that these new students pray every year is, we're just so glad to be here and in school. And it's so encouraging. And a lot of them are hearing good news about Jesus for the first time. I remember in one of my classes the other day, we were talking through Moses and Exodus and the 10 plagues, and their minds were like, I can't believe that actually happened, and that's true, and it's been exciting. But we know that they may not be here even for the rest of the school year, with District 25 opening up some in-person options. So we're trying to be cautious, but also forward-looking with all of this. So one other piece we haven't got to yet is all the other stuff that happens and fits in the financial picture. So I'm thinking of like summer camp that almost didn't happen last year, extended care that's pretty empty this year just because parents are taking their kids home, at the end of the school day. And then outside users and groups, which have been pretty much non-existent this year. So how does all that fit into kind kind of the financial picture?
Yeah, overall, I would say those things are down probably about 75% for this year, just because we're not able to do as much. As you mentioned, extended care, people are just keeping their kids home when they can. And so those are all programs that create significant revenue and even a surplus in those areas for us. So the financial picture is affected by that as well, by several $100,000 in this year. Now we're hopeful again as things start to open back up that we can ramp back up some of those activities. We plan to host a summer camp. We don't know exactly what it'll look like yet, but if it needs to be modified and spaced out, we'll do that and still be able to offer it. And then we'll slowly start to bring in some outside users back into the building, and we'll see some revenue through that as well.
Now, I was thinking back to last year when we were going through our budgeting process, and I remember having some difficult conversations about how we're not going to have as much money for like coffee and snacks on Sunday morning anymore, and we were going to cut back on that and just get by with a thinner year, only to realize that we have like zero budget need for that this year. So talk to us a little bit about just otherwise general expenses. We've been able to keep them down, right? And just spend less money overall wherever and whenever possible.
Yeah, overall, our expenses are down over $1 million from what we actually spent last year. A lot of that is the staff restructuring that we went through last year and just less positions. And some of it is just those small things adding up. So even things like printing, we've eliminated those where we can, food and snacks. So we're trying to be as smart as we can and really be good stewards of what God has entrusted us with, and just not spend money where we don't have to spend money. And kind of just try to get through this COVID season till things kind of ramp back up and we can have a little bit more normal budgeting season.
Now, most of the people watching this are familiar with the CARES Act and PPP loans. You maybe received government stimulus money in your own bank accounts, and we're grateful for that. Walk us through what we did with our PPP loan last year and what the status is of another round of PPP that we're going to apply for here in the coming days.
Yeah, so last spring we applied for the PPP loan and were granted the full amount. We're in the process of just getting the final forgiveness on that, and we think about 99% of that from the first round will be forgiven. So we just thank God for that and the provision that was to get us through last year, continue to pay the staff that we had at the time through the summer.
So that money is not sitting in a bank account somewhere?
No, that was used to pay our staff during the season that it was for.
And that's its purpose,
yeah,
right? Is
exactly.
to help keep them supported during that early stage of the pandemic. Okay.
Yeah, the amount equals about 2.5 months worth of our salary and benefits and some other mortgage numbers and things like that. So it just helps you maintain your operations and your staffing during that time period. Now there is a second round available, and so we're in the process of applying for that. We're very confident we're going to qualify for it and get those funds in the next few weeks or months. The amount will be a little bit less than last time because of our staffing levels. But again, if it all goes through, it'll be a huge blessing to our ministry to get us through this time, pay all of our staff through the spring, and actually be able to, including the forgiveness that we'll get from it, come out of the year with maybe a small surplus or moderate surplus.
Okay, so let me kind of package this together again. So in this fiscal year, we expect that we're going to end with an operating loss again because of lost enrollment from early childhood and those programs that we talked about earlier. But if we receive this PPP loan, that'll more than make up for that within this fiscal year, and we can end with a surplus even after we pay back the portion of this second PPP loan that's not going to be forgiven.
That would be the plan, is as soon as we can, whatever portion won't be forgiven of this second round, to pay that back and not hold that long term. But the amount that will be forgiven, like you said, will make up for our deficit in this year and maybe give us a little bit extra to go into next year with.
Yeah, so what it sounds like is that God is going to bless us through everything that the people have done to be generous and supportive, through the careful, difficult decisions we've made to limit expenses and adjust staffing to match our current and future reality. And we're going to end up after this fiscal year okay, and then ready to turn into the next chapter when God opens that door.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the other things that COVID has kind of thrown a wrench into our plans with is the capital campaign. And so we got ready for that. We cast the vision. We started talking to people about it.
Yeah.
And then it got kind of put on pause due to COVID. So do you want to give us an update? Just where does that stand?
Yep.
When
Yep.
do we plan to relaunch it?
Yeah, and that was obviously a complicating factor last year because on the one hand, we were going through the difficult conversations about staffing, and then the other hand, we were talking about facility needs and dreams for the future, and then COVID happened. And so I remember one of the last set of in-person conversations I was having was with individuals who were making pledges, and we were going to homes when that was still okay, right before everything got shut down. And we had great response. We had more pledges coming in at higher levels than I've ever seen in my time here. It was exciting, even in the midst of all of it. But we made the right decision and said, let's pause that. And so the capital campaign is on pause until such time as it becomes clear that it's time to resume it. And we will need to, because there are critical needs in this room and throughout our campus that need to be addressed, as well as we want to pay down as much, if not all, of our mortgage. There's a loan from our foundation to start the capital campaign. That'll be paid back by the capital campaign. So my most aggressive, optimistic hopefulness would be sometime later this spring. We'll kind of restart it. We will have some conversations with the congregation about what needs to change in that campaign, if anything, and then we will begin the in-person visits and try to complete it during the course of this year. And what would be awesome if we were able to pull that off would be this summer might be a great time to do some work in this room while people are still really cautious about being in-person worship. Parking lot, other things that may need to be done. This may be a perfect time to do some of that work. So that's what the board and our team are wrestling with to try to figure it out.
Got it. Yeah, and like you said, it may be time to look at just the priorities of the campaign. We had some pretty big and aggressive dreams and plans for this campus and expansion, and those are all good. But we may just need to have conversations with you all to say, with COVID, with everything in mind of where we're at, what's most important to you? And what are you willing to put your resources behind to see this ministry thrive in the future? So we look forward to having those conversations.
I remember last summer having conversations with some of you about how I wish we had completed that capital campaign and had a bunch of money to be doing work last summer when everything was shut down. But one question is, what does a school room of the future need to look like? And we're not going to know that really clearly until we're past this COVID season. So God's working it out. It'll be okay, but there's still work and challenge to be done. What's interesting is during that same time, God has done some amazing things, opening doors with our 10 and 10 dream. Many of you know that Lexi Schmidt, a daughter of the congregation, is now the city director for Link Chicago and is off to a fantastic start, building connections and relationships in the city to start new things for the kingdom there. We also are just developing a really sweet relationship with Grace Lutheran Church in Northbrook. They have a brand new pastor who got started in ministry during a pandemic, and we've been able to help coach and encourage them. And we're looking to formalize what exactly that'll look like for their sake as well as ours in the next few months. And we're working with one or two other nearby congregations along similar lines. And so we'll see more of that happening even in the midst of a pandemic. And during that same time, God also opened up a door for us to move forward with some discipleship ideas that we'd been working on as a staff, including starting online community groups. Our youth and children's ministry positions are now vacant, so we're going to start a path of searching to fill those with new student discipleship leadership type roles. You'll hear more about that in the coming weeks. And in the meantime, we're using those online community groups, that model, to try to pivot what was already being started with Kristen while she was here with us in youth ministry in middle school and high school. And so with our existing staff and volunteers, you're going to see some of that in the next few weeks. But God's on the move. He's got us in his hands. And so we don't need to worry or be afraid about that, but we need to be wise and careful, but also be ready to pursue what it is he's putting out in front of us and calling us to do. And so thank you to all of you for what you do to help make that possible. Thank you for your prayers, your encouragement, and support. Keep that coming. And we'll try to keep updates and information coming your way like this so that you can stay connected and informed about what God's doing. So thanks for watching this. We love you. We'll see you soon. God bless.